Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Menachem Creditor. It's my honor to serve as scholar in residence and rabbi for UJA Federation of New York. We bring you Torah and music, blessing, and community every weekday morning. We've been doing so since March 18th, 2020. Today it is January 8th, 2026. It's been a privilege to bring together this community for almost 6 years every weekday morning to learn Torah and say good morning. Let's see who's here so we can actually do that, fulfill our tradition, keep our rituals going, and just love each other well. Linda and Carl, Jonathan and Lydia, Boker Tov. It's good to see you. Hi, Lisa. Hope that you are safe and well. Barbara and Dave, Sharon, Cynthia and Cecile. Good morning, everybody. Let's give everybody a second to join up, and then we'll get started. Sing a bracha and do some learning. Jerry and Judy, Patricia, good morning. Hi, Rita. Nice to see you. Okay, we'll take a breath. Hi, Valerie. Nice to see you. Julianne, Arlene, Boker Tov. Let's do some learning. Okay. Howard, nice to see you, my friend. Hi, Natalie. Arlene and Debbie. Everybody, it's good to see you. I can see our hearts are all over the place. So I encourage you while we're learning to take a moment, share as a comment either here on Instagram, here on Facebook, where your heart is and what's been happening in your immediate. It's hard to figure out where to focus. And so what I've decided to do most of all these recent months is to focus on Torah and to invite you to apply these lessons where they fit. Sometimes I address something that's happening in the world very directly, as I did 2 days ago on January 6th. But it is also dizzying to try to bring every headline into one frame. What I will say is we have the capacity to do it all, but we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves as we do it. So let this Torah lesson be an invitation to you to apply it as you see fit. Let's sing that bracha that reminds us to be la'asok b'divrei Torah, to be busy with words of Torah, because ultimately that will strengthen us to do our work in the world, to respond based on our values and our learning, our deep and abiding humanity, no matter what it is that we're facing. Because it's clear, friends, it's clear that this world needs tending. Our Torah can be a source of healing in so many of these moments that we are facing as a people here in the United States, as a country, also in the world, also everywhere, and likely in our families and places that we don't see as headlines. So I'm going to focus on Torah, and I invite you to use your own spiritual imagination and personal courage to apply it as you see fit. Parshat Shemot is the beginning of our liberation story. And it's wrapped up in some ways in a biography of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe, our teacher. Now, who is he? Who does he think himself to be? He's born and grows very quickly. This Parsha, saved by his mother, saved by his sister, saved by Pharaoh's daughter. How many heroes can one story have? And then as he is raised in Pharaoh's palace, somehow he still responds with violence to stop an Egyptian taskmaster from beating an Israelite slave. And it is an extraordinary question. Is he responding based on his commitment to life and dignity for all? Is he responding, as the text might suggest, to the pain of Echav, his people? We don't quite know what Moshe is responding to. Is it a universalist tendency within him that feeds our own strivings for social justice? Is it tribalism because he stands up for his brother who is vulnerable and being hurt? Maybe it's both, because how is it possible, and why should I try to bifurcate my soul between being a human being and being a Jew? I'm a Jew who is a human being. I'm a human being who is a Jew. That should be a weave, not a compartmentalized way of thinking. Let's look at one hint at the personality of Moshe, not at the earliest part of his life, but at the beginning of his service on behalf of the people's liberation. Because in this Parsha, chapter 3 of the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus, we have this very interesting scene that so many people think they understand, but none of us really do. The scene with the burning bush. Here's the Hebrew. This is chapter 3, verses 2 and 3. I'll read the Hebrew because it's so beautiful, and then some English. Vayera malach Adonai elav belabat esh mitoch hasneh, vayar v'hine hasneh bo'er ba'esh, והסנה איננו אוכל. ויאמר משה, אסור נא ואראה את המראה הגדול הזה, מדוע לא יבער הסנה? A messenger of God appeared to him in a blazing fire out of a bush. He gazed, and there was a bush all aflame, yet the bush was not consumed. Moses said, I must turn aside to look at this marvelous sight. Why doesn't the bush burn up? Let me make a few reflective comments. None of these exhaust the text. This is an image that has captured the imagination of so many. I think it also reveals a little bit about who Moshe is and was, and maybe who he's supposed to be for us, and in that way, maybe what we're supposed to aspire to live up to. Let's think about that after the broadcast, which, thank you, Penny, is broadcast 1465. An angel appeared to Moshe from the bush. Obviously, the bush is not the angel, but something happens in the world that causes it to be on fire, and yet somehow it's not consumed, and Moshe passes by. Now, there are suggestions in tradition, it's not in the Torah text, but it is in the Midrash, that says the burning bush was always burning, it was always there, but Moshe was the first to notice it. Because he says in the very next verse, Asura na ve'er'eh, I have to look. It's as if he's walking by and suddenly goes, oh my gosh, look at that. Caught in what Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel called radical amazement. He has to see it. He's caught in wonder. And he asks, Madua lo yivar hasneh? He's curious. Why? How is this possible? How is it possible for something to be on fire and not consumed? I would offer very tentatively that we could say the same thing about this world. How is it possible for all of these things to be happening in and to our world, and yet it's still here? Every people, I'm assuming, has that kind of a question. How are we still here? In some ways, it's a shared sense of survivor syndrome. Why am I still here if so many others are not? And I would suggest, much as Moshe is told, because he asks God, when God says, go to Pharaoh, Moshe says, Mi anochi ki elech. Who am I that I should go? Me? And the answer is, You noticed, Moshe. You saw the beauty of this world. You know that it's worth fighting for. And you were curious because this isn't how things work. When they're on fire, they burn up. And yet, somehow it didn't. Moshe has to learn about this. How is it possible to be fiery and not consumed? These are questions for us, especially in a world that fights so often to the death in the name of truths that are not shared. That is a consuming fire. That's not what Moshe sees. I would connect this to a beautiful story, again, about Heschel. Heschel was known as a civil rights leader here in the United States. He was also known as a leading Jewish and religious intellectual. He was on the airwaves. He was marching in Selma, writing and writing and writing. And his resume was pretty big. So he was introduced at a talk on a college campus with his full resume. It's just one of those where the person doing the introduction really did an introduction. And then Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, this holy man, got up to the podium and he leans to the microphone and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, on the way in tonight, I witnessed a miracle." And you can only imagine how everybody leaned forward just to hear what this might possibly be. And he said, "On the way in tonight, my friends, I saw a flower." And that's the story. It is an extraordinary thing, friends. An extraordinary thing in the midst of a world like ours to still be able to see the beauty of flowers. Heschel saw the darkness of the world and he said very, very powerfully, "I refuse to accommodate myself to the violence of the world. I am in shock. I should be in shock. I will be in shock. When the world goes wrong, when people commit terrible acts." And again, I gently invite you to apply these lessons in a way that will build the world around you. To still see the beauty in the world and to say to yourself, for me to say to myself, I see so much fire, how is this not consumed? And then to be called to do something for the sake of others. Because these are miracles. If a flower can make a holy person stop, how much more so our fellow human beings? So friends, let's notice the flowers. Let's let the flowers teach us about beauty again. Amy's sharing that she's grateful to have children near her, showing her the flowers at this time. Yes, that has to be how we find our way back to a world that is less on fire and more illuminated. There are flowers. Moshe said about his great work. Now it's our turn. Send your hearts to the east with me, friends. Let's sing. Kolon balevav penima nefesh Yehudi homia ulefate mizrach kadima ayin letzion tzofia. Od lo avda tikvatenu, hatikva bat shnot alpayim, liot am chofshi בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. Am Yisrael Chai. See you tomorrow, my friends.